Hi, everybody. Happy Tuesday. We're going to be doing a class that focuses today on relieving low back pain, which is a really, really common complaint that I hear from a lot of people, students, friends, family alike. So especially right now, for those that are working from home and don't have maybe an ergonomic desk situation, it can be pretty tough on, oh geez, okay, I gotta shut my Wi-Fi off, sorry. Wi-Fi off. Okay, hopefully this works. So for those who are experiencing maybe like a different desk situation at home or whatever it may be, low back pain is a really common chronic pain that a lot of us will feel. And what's not as commonly known is that the source of the low back pain is often not in the low back, but it's coming from the hips or coming from lack of support in the core. So with your low back, when you think about, and I'll show you how it's connected, how all the ligaments and everything are connected with our body. Our front hip points are actually in the hip flexors, run in this direction, all on the side of our hip and come into our low back. So basically what's happening with a lot of us is that when we are stressed out, we are curling ourselves into this really tight, tiny ball. And this may be a totally subconscious thing. We're doing it in a subconscious way. When we are trying to comfort ourselves, we're like automatically we come to this sort of fetal position. So that's like ingrained in our human brains, is that like when we're trying to protect ourselves, we curl into a fetal position. If you think about where that comes from, it's because we're trying to protect our vital organs, right? So we're curling in this tiny little ball to protect our organs. So when we're stressed, subconsciously, our body is moving in that direction, even though we don't think that we are. So like our legs are like pulling upwards and we're just like subconsciously trying to do this. So even though we're not actively doing it, the act of stress subconsciously pulls on those hip flexors, and it's creating a lot of pressure in the low back because we're straining those hip flexors, and our pelvis therefore is not tilted in the correct alignment or in a sort of optimal alignment position. So we tend to have when we're either stressed or when we're standing all day, we tend to get those low back issues. Another cause of low back pain is sometimes just poor support in the core. So if we don't have enough core strength to sort of keep us in a upright position. So there's a lot of different things. And then there's also, there's like scoliosis, there's sciatica, there's all these things that are sort of connected to low back pain. So what we're going to work on today is we're going to move through a lot of postures that help just open up and increase mobility in the hip space. We're going to work on strengthening a little bit of core, not too much. And then just do a lot of positions that feel really, really good if you have low back pain. So a lot of forward folds, a lot of twists, and then a lot of outer hip openers. So you're going to see as you go through the class, like if you're feeling some low back pain, like in some of these like outer hip stretches, it feels so good. So you'll see through class, but you should have a really nice release of the low back after this class. The one thing that I want you to grab is a tennis ball. If you have a tennis ball or a lacrosse ball or like a Yamuna rolling ball, it could be your dog's ball, but something that has very little give if possible. And if you don't have if you don't have a ball that you can use, a foam roller can work. I'm trying to think what else could work. Maybe like a water bottle. Like if you have like a rubber water bottle, that's pretty hard. like even like a Nalgene or something like that. But we're going to get into a little bit of deep tissue release, some myofascial release with the tennis ball. So grab that now. We're going to get started on our side. So we're going to start, it's up to you which side you want to start on, but we're basically going to take the tennis ball and we're going to place it, on our outer hip. And then we're going to basically lay on it and relax on it. So I'm going to come onto my side and sort of this side forearm plank. And I'm going to lift my hips up and I'm going to place the tennis ball. And I'm trying to like describe where it is to start. It's basically above my femur bone. So it's at the connection point of my femur bone and my pelvis. And it's like digging into the side, and it should feel pretty intense when you're doing this, but you want to have as much of your weight on the tennis ball as possible. So you can kind of see where it is right now. Well, now you can, but I have it just on the side, right where my femur bone and my pelvis connect. And it's really digging into those ligaments that connect my thigh to my glute muscles. So it's on the outer glute, basically the top of the thigh on the outer glute. So we're basically just going to make a little bit of gentle rolling sensation, like rolling movements across this ball. And what we're essentially doing is we're releasing a lot of the tension in the IT band, in the quadricep muscle group that's connected to our gluteus medius. So we're working into those connection points, those ligaments that may get a little bit stuck with fascia, with like sticky or with like a buildup of fascia that's surrounding the ligaments. So what we're trying to do is break up that excess fascia that's causing the muscles in the thigh and the quad and the glute to basically like tighten up towards each other, right? So there's like a strain that's happening. So we're trying to release that, and then eventually we're going to move forward. We're going to turn onto our belly and do it in our hip flexor as well. But I want you to sort of just make some movements so that you feel this in the glute and like the top of the thigh. And it should be pretty intense. And if you're feeling like this is really intense, like just breathe, like take really, really deep breaths through this. It is it can be a little bit painful, but it's kind of like a good pain. And then maybe you roll a little bit more onto the back of your upper glute. So like more turning facing the ceiling, and you get a little bit of that release of the glute muscle as well, where the glute and the hamstring connect. We're just making little gentle rocking movements across the ball. And then eventually we're going to turn to face the side even more. So now we're rolling the ball basically more onto the hip flexor. And this is where it gets horrible. It's really, really intense, but you're eventually going to want to have that ball situated right where your hip flexor is, right on, and you can kind of feel the ligament is like very clearly like a strip. You're going to want to move it on either side of that strip, like back and forth. So right now I have it on like the left side of the ligament, and I'm just sort of rocking into it a little bit so that it's not quite going all the way into the hip flexor, but it's just releasing a little bit of that area to the left. And then eventually I'm going to make my way completely onto the hip flexor and even to the right of it. And this is like, oh God, this is the worst one. So it should feel pretty intense on that front hip. But we're just going to put as much of our body weight into the ball as possible and just relax into it as much as we can. And just take some deeper breaths here. And you can really play around with like feeling the different sensations of as you move around on the ball. Like maybe you make circles, you just play around with what feels good. Right now I'm moving the ball more on the top of my quadricep and off of the hip flexor because I'm finding that that's pretty relieving for the pain, or a pretty nice release on that hip flexor area as well. Even though it's not right on the hip flexor, it's right around those connection points where we get a lot of tension. And just find a deep breath cycle here. You know, we don't want to be taking short breaths. We want to be able to take deep breaths, because the more that you breathe and the longer you can find and lengthen the breath, the more you can let that tension and release those like sticky tissue fibers, the more that you can release those if you can breathe into them. So then we're eventually going to make our way off of the ball and come onto the other side. So I'm going to place it again. It's going to be on my right on my outer hip, basically right where my femur bone and my pelvis are connected. I'm just going to lay on the ball, and it should immediately fire up that right glute, where you're like, oh man, that's intense. But it should also kind of feel pretty good. It's like hurts so good type of thing. And you're just going to make some small movements back and forth. I'm really gently just moving back and forth. Like I'm not making big circles, big movements, big rocking. I'm basically just digging into that those tissues there. And so what this is allowing us to do is it's just a sort of deep tissue massage of all of those areas. Oh, okay. I just rolled a little bit further onto my side so that it's a little bit closer to the center of my hip. So again, just play around with the positioning of the ball, but it should generally be on the same sort of parallel plane, but you want to just like rock forward and back across the ball and notice how that feels across the entire glute med. So essentially what we're doing is we're breaking up a lot of that fascia that's building up in the connection points, that's causing strain on the low back. So again, we're just having like this nice deep tissue massage of all the places that get strained and cause low back pain when we're stressed. And now I'm going to roll a little bit farther forward so that I'm more on the side of my hip, like right before where my hip flexor area starts. So if you can't see that ball, it's like right here. And I'm just playing around with weight distribution. And now I'm rolling completely onto my belly. And I'm just trying to find that sweet spot where the hip flexor meets the top of the quad. So again, you don't want the ball to be right on the hip flexor, but you do want to get it in all those little tiny spaces surrounding the hip flexor. The top of the quad, into the pelvis. Whew, that was intense. And you just want to take nice deep breaths here. And then when you're ready, so eventually making your way up to a tabletop position, and we're just going to remove that tennis ball or whatever you're using out of the way. So we're coming on to in the tabletop position. Your shoulders are stacked right over your wrists, and your hips are stacked directly over your knees. On your inhale breath, you're going to start to drop your belly low, lift your tailbone up towards the ceiling, pull your chest through your shoulders, broaden at the collarbones, and then tip your chin up towards the ceiling. This is cow pose. And then as you exhale, you're going to start to round your tailbone down towards your knees, pull your belly in towards your spine, puff up your back, press firmly into the palms of the hands to really accentuate that curve in the back, and then tuck your chin into your chest. And this is cat pose. As you inhale, start to drop your belly low, lift your chin, lift your chest, lift your tailbone, pull your chest through your shoulders, broaden at the collarbones. And then as you exhale, start to take your tailbone down, pull your navel into your spine, puff the upper back up, and tuck your chin into your chest. And then as you inhale, come back into cow. And then as you exhale, round and curl into cat. Just move through a couple more of these with your own breath. If you want to make any additional movements, maybe swaying side to side, or like wagging the tail, as they say. And it's totally up to you. This is your practice, whatever you're feeling called to, whatever your body is asking for. And it's a good time to honor that. Eventually, we make our way back in a tabletop position. So again, in tabletop, we have a neutral spine and a flat back. Take a deep inhale breath through your nose. And a big exhale breath out. As you inhale, start to reach your right arm up towards the ceiling. Start to roll out the wrists. Reverse the direction if you're making circles. Take an inhale breath. And then as you exhale, you're going to thread your right arm underneath your left. Start to take your shoulder down to the center of your mat and then rest your right ear onto the mat in the center as well. You can keep your left palm as is, or you can start to walk your hand forward, straightening the arm out towards the front of your mat with your palm facing down and bicep next to the ear. And then check to see if your hips are squared over top of your knees. We want this twist to come from the upper back. So you're going to want to press the top of your right hand and your forearm into the mat to open up that left shoulder and open up your collarbones towards the side of the room. If your shoulder allows it, you can try to bind the left arm behind your low back and tuck your fingers on top of your right thigh. See if you can open up and broaden at the collarbones, open up the shoulders to face the left side of the room. And we're taking deep breaths here through the nose. Try to keep your hips square towards the floor. And take one more deep inhale breath through your nose. And as you exhale, you're going to slowly unwind, uncurl, place the left palm underneath the left shoulder, press into that left palm to reach your right arm up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, place that right palm back down. Inhale, lift your left leg or left arm up towards the ceiling, making some circles with the wrist. And then reversing the direction of the circles. Take an inhale breath. And then exhale, we're going to thread that left arm underneath the right armpit. Drop the left shoulder and the left ear down to the center of your mat. And then you're going to start to walk. Either you can keep your right palm where it is, or walk that hand straight out towards the top of your mat, bicep in line with the ear. Taking deep breaths through the nose here. If you'd like to bind the right arm, wrap it around the low back, tuck your fingers onto the top of your left thigh. And broaden those shoulders and the collarbone open towards the right side of the room. See if you can keep your hips square towards the floor. We're taking a deep breath in through the nose, pressing into the left shoulder, into the left arm, the top of the left hand to roll that left or right shoulder open. One more deep breath in through the nose. And then as you exhale, we're unwinding, placing the right palm back down on the mat underneath your right shoulder, pressing into that right palm to lift the left arm back up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, place the left palm down. Start to walk your hands forward towards the front of your mat until you're about 6 inches from the front of your mat, from the top of your mat. Tuck your toes under and then start to lift your knees up so you can straighten the legs. Send your hips up in space. Send your chest back through your shoulders to back towards your shins. And our toes, our feet are about hips width distance apart. Hands are shoulder width distance apart. So this is downward facing dog. Spread your fingers as wide as they go. Press into the hands as much as possible. Start to roll your biceps up towards the ceiling, and then spin your triceps down towards the mat. See if you can take your shoulders away from the ears, making space for the neck. Take a soft bend in the knees. Maybe for this first downward dog, you just pedal it out one and bend one knee at a time to open up the calves. Pull your navel in towards your spine, and then see if you can pull your ribs together, your front ribs together. So you're almost making this sort of like cat, like a cat-cow. You're almost making a cat-like arch in the, or curve in the back when you do this. So we're trying to create as much length in the spine as we can. Your heels do not need to reach the mat, but you definitely want to work them in that direction. Your gaze should be at your toes, and your ears should be in line with your biceps. And we're breathing here, in and out through the nose. Take one last deep breath in through the nose. And then as you exhale, you're going to shift forward into a high plank position. On your inhale breath, just take your right knee towards your chest. And then exhale, take it back. Left knee into the chest. Exhale, take it back. So we're just going to move through these slow mountain climbers to warm up the core. See if you can keep your hips low as you do it. See if you can keep your shoulders over your wrists, your collarbones moving forward, and your gaze forward. So we're going to be doing this for about 20 more seconds. That's no time at all. You can do this. If this is tough for you on the wrists, come down to the forearms and just take your knees out towards the side. For 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 3.5, 2, 1. And then drop your knees down to the mat. Untuck your back toes. Take your knees as wide as they can go, and then start to sit back onto your heels. We're coming into child's pose. So again, your knees are open wide, toes are touching, chest is sinking through and resting in between your thighs. Your forehead comes to the mat. If it doesn't reach the mat, place a pillow underneath your forehead. And your arms are straight out in front of you. Forearms are rested on the mat. Start to rock your head side to side so that you sort of massage that forehead space, the third eye center. And let your spine get nice and long. Let this be a nice release for the low back. Breathing in and out deeply through the nose here. Take one more deep breath in through the nose. And then as you exhale, you're going to come back into tabletop. So rise back up on hands and knees, tuck your toes under, straighten the legs, or lift your knees so you can straighten the legs to come back into downward facing dog. Maybe you pedal it out a few more times. Breathing in through the nose, and breathing out. Breath in through the nose. And as you exhale, start to walk your feet forward to the front of your mat to meet your hands. Take your feet hips width distance apart, so that's about 2 fists in between your feet. Bend into the knees, let your chest rest on top of your thighs. Grab opposite elbows, and let your upper body hang really heavy. Weight is more in the balls and the toes of the feet. See if you can get your hips over your heels. Let your neck hang. Maybe you sway from side to side. It should feel pretty nice on the low back. Take one more inhale breath here. And a big exhale out. Inhale, bend into the knees and look forward. Start to pull your belly off of your chest. Let your arms go. Start to reach forward. We're standing up with knees bent all the way up to standing. Arms come up overhead. And then as you exhale, your hands come in prayer across the center of your face down to your heart for mountain pose. Samasthi TV. Okay, so we're going to move through a few sun salutations. As you inhale, we're going to reach our arms up overhead. Pull your biceps next towards your ears, or next to your ears. Palms are facing one another. Take your tailbone down towards your heels. Pull your navel into your spine. And then as you exhale, we're going to start to bow forward for a forward fold. Come all the way down. And you can do a reverse or a swan dive down, or just hands come through prayer. As you inhale, start to lift up halfway. So we're coming into this halfway lift where we have straighter legs and a straighter spine, right? So we want to find a flat back here and just find as much extension through the crown of the head as possible. Weight is in the toes. And then as you exhale, you're going to place your palms flat on the mat and step back into a high plank position. And then two options with your sun salutations. You can drop the knees, lower down to the belly, untuck your back toes, and then using the strength of your back, lifting your shoulders and your chest off of the mat. Taking your elbows together, your shoulder blades together, little to no weight in the palms. This is baby cobra or low cobra. Press into the tops of the feet and lift the kneecaps off of the mat. And then as you exhale, your forehead comes back down. You can press back into tabletop pose. Tuck your toes under, and then downward facing dog. That's option one. Option two, from high plank position, you shift your shoulders forward past your fingertips. Then you start to lower halfway into a tricep push-up. So your elbows are right in line with your ribs. Shoulders do not come below the elbows. Then you untuck your back toes and you start to straighten your arms and peel your chest through for upward facing dog. Kneecaps are lifted off of the mat. Chin is parallel to the floor. Collarbones are broadened and shoulder blades are pulling down the back. And then as you exhale, you're going to use the strength of your low belly to lift your hips up high, untuck your toes along the way, and press back into downward facing dog. Inhale, breath through the nose, remaining in downward dog. And then exhale out. Inhale through the nose. Exhale, walk your feet forward to the front of your mat. As you inhale, come into a halfway lift. So we're lifting up halfway, finding a long, straight spine. And then as you exhale, we're going to fold forward. As you inhale, we're going to rise all the way back up to standing. Arms come up overhead. And then exhale, hands come through center in front of your heart in prayer. Inhale, sweep your arms up overhead. Biceps next to the ears. Exhale, bow forward all the way down for a forward fold. Inhale, come up halfway. And then exhale, plant your hands, step back into that high plank position, and then your choice, either lowering all the way to your belly or lowering halfway down. Inhale, upward facing or low cobra, back bend of your choice. And then exhale, press back to downward facing dog. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling out. Inhale through the nose. And then exhale, walk your feet forward to meet your hands at the front of your mat. On your inhale breath, come into that halfway lift. And then as you exhale, we're going to fold forward. Inhale, rise to standing, arms come up all the way overhead. And then exhale, hands come through prayer in front of your heart. Okay, so we're going to move through a few standing sequences. Just making sure that we got connection here. So the first thing that we're going to do is a standing figure four. So we're just going to meet in a standing position at the front of our mat. Start to lift your right knee up. You're going to cross your right knee over your left ankle and make the number 4. And then we're going to start to sit backwards into like a chair. So we're here. And I want you to flex into that right foot as much as possible. So this is a little bit of balance work here. We're going to take our hands in prayer in front of our heart. And we're going to sit as low as our body will allow us. Pull your belly in towards your spine and see if you can press your knee down towards the earth. So rather than keeping it up, you can try to energetically press that knee down. And if you need to adjust with your hands, go ahead and do that. But we're starting in this seated or standing figure 4. It's almost like in a chair pose. And then the more that you can sort of rest your elbows down towards, or pull your elbows down towards your knee and your foot, the deeper of a stretch you'll get. So this should feel pretty good on the low back. And we're just going to hold here for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So on your inhale breath, you're going to start to rise back up on that left leg. Lift your right leg up back for a one-legged mountain pose. With control, you're going to step that right foot back into a high lunge. Start to lower the knee all the way down towards the mat. You may need a blanket here to place under your knee. I'm definitely going to do so, just so there's a little bit more cushion there. And I'm in a low lunge. So in low lunge, I want you to think about making 90-degree angles with your legs. So rather than having the pelvis tilted forward like this, I'm going to straighten everything back. So a lot of the times when we get in these low lunges, we want to be like this, where our pelvis is tilted. Like you can literally see my back is at an angle, right? So I'm going to come up further and take the tilt out of my pelvis by pulling my front hip bones up towards my shoulders and taking my tailbone down towards my heel. So you can see what that looks like. And when I do that, I can already feel my right hip flexor and my right quad engaging here. I can feel that stretch and that opening happening. So we're going to reach our arms up towards the ceiling, and we're in a low lunge. We're going to hold here for a few breaths, and we're very slowly going to eventually make our way to a high lunge. And I want you to think about squaring the hips first towards the front of the room and making those 90-degree angles with your legs. Take an inhale breath and tuck your back toes. And then take an exhale. And then as you inhale, we're going to come up, straighten, lift that right knee off of the mat, straighten that back leg as much as you can, and we're in this high lunge position. Very slowly, we're going to start to reach forward, and you may need some props here if you feel like you can't put your fingertips down to the mat in this lunge position. So I'm going to just have blocks nearby. You can also use like dumbbells, or you could use a foam roller, something to just raise the ground up. So take an inhale breath into this low lunge position. And as you exhale, you're just going to start to straighten that front leg and come back onto the right heel just a little bit. Inhale breath, bend into the front knee, and exhale, straighten that left leg. So we're just moving into this sort of low lunge pyramid position. This should be a nice opening in the left hamstring, the left quad a little bit. And we're just moving in and out with our breath. Inhaling, bending the knee, and exhaling, straightening the leg. Just move through this a few more times with your own breath. And then eventually we're going to make our way back to a lunge position. So we're going to hold here, and we're going to rise all the way up for high lunge. And you're going to start to drop your right heel down so that your foot is at about a 45 or 90-degree angle. We're going to open up for warrior 2. So we're in high lunge, drop your heel down, And you may need to adjust your feet so that your left heel, your front heel, is in line with your right arch. So we have a straight line going from our heel, front heel, to our back arch. And then you're going to turn your torso to face the side of the room. Open up your arms wide like a T, palms facing down. Drop your shoulder blades down your back. Bend deeply into that left knee so that your left knee is right over your left foot. And then take your shoulders and make sure they're right over your hips. So instead of, kind of reaching in this position where we're putting a lot of pressure on that quad, I'm pulling my shoulders backwards so that they're stacked right over my hips. And I'm putting equal amount of pressure on the outside edge of my right foot, back foot. And then you gaze over your front fingertips. Inhale, breath through the nose. And then as you exhale, very slowly start to straighten that front leg, the left leg, and we're going to start to reach forward. Like somebody is grasping our left palm and pulling us forward. We're going to reach as far as we go, and then we're going to tip our whole body and our whole shoulders down for triangle pose. So in triangle, you may need a prop, or you can just rest your hand right on top of your ankle, and then your right arm is reaching up towards the sky. Pull your shoulders down your back, so that you have plenty of space between your earlobes and your shoulders. You should feel a nice opening right on that right side of your hip. Should feel pretty good for the low back as well. See if you can spin those shoulders and the collarbones open to face the right side of the room. Soft bend in that left knee. Take one more deep breath. And then as you exhale, we're going to turn our torso to face the front of the room again. Bend into that front knee, release the back heel. You're just going to step up and fold forward. So you're stepping up to the front of your mat, and then you're folding forward into forward fold. Take your, walk your feet hips width distance apart here in this forward fold. And notice that my knees are still bent. If this is not an option, if this next pose is not an option for you at all, just grab opposite elbows and do what we did at the beginning of class when we bent into our knees, rested our chest on top of our thighs, and swayed side to side. If you are able to take your peace fingers around your big toes comfortably, then here's where we're going to go. As you inhale, you're going to start to lift up into a sort like a pseudo halfway lift. So we're creating length in the hamstring and in the spine here. So I'm straightening the legs a little bit, right? So I'm not completely locking out the knees, but I'm straightening enough that I feel that stretch in my hamstrings. And then I'm reaching my collarbones and the crown of my head forward and finding as flat of a back as possible. And then I'm going to start to pull into my big toes with my peace fingers and start to bend into the elbows to pull my collarbone and my chest down towards the mat. Drop my head and just hang here. So you're just getting a nice hamstring stretch here. And then rather than letting those shoulders drop into the ears, pull your shoulder blades up towards your tailbone so that there's plenty of space there. And breathe here, deeply through the nose. And breathe out. Very slowly, you're going to start to release the grip of the toes. Lift up halfway. Bend the knees, and then we're going to rise all the way back up to standing. So we're at the top of our mat, and now we take our left knee for three-legged mountain, or one three-legged mountain. One-legged mountain, sorry. So we're standing in one-legged mountain pose. We have our left knee up. We're going to cross our left foot across our right knee. And then start to sit back into that standing figure four. You might need to adjust a little bit. Keep the left foot flexed the whole time. Start to sit back into your hips, into like a chair pose, like you're sitting into a chair, and then take your hands at your heart in front of you in prayer. See if you can sit back a little lower. And then check down to your right knee. Make sure that it's not sort of like coming out to the side or knocking in. You want your knee to be right over your ankle. And yes, it may be forward, but as long as it's not past your toes, you're in good shape. Keep that left foot flexed and then sit as low as you'd like to open up that outer hip on the left side. So you should definitely feel this in that outer hip. If you don't, you're insane. And then we're very slowly going to start to rise back up to standing. Left knee is lifted. And then with control, we're going to step back to high lunge. And then we're going to drop that back knee for low lunge. And we're going to set it up here. We're finding this 90-degree angle. See if you can pull your front hip bones up towards your shoulders. Take your tailbone down towards your heel. So take the tilt out of the pelvis, okay? And then our shoulders are right over our hips. And we're allowing that just natural curve of the spine to fall into place. And we're seeing if we can push that left hip forward and up, right? So we want to feel a nice opening in that left hip flexor in the top of the left quad. So this should feel pretty nice. And the arms come up overhead for 3 breaths. And then on your next inhale, you're going to tuck your back toes under. And then as you exhale, lift your back knee for high lunge, full pose here. When we're in high lunge position, we're going to start to reach forward, straighten that back leg. If you have props and you want to find those props to place your hands on, we're going to start moving in and out of that pyramid position. So straightening that right leg, and then as you exhale, bending into it. Inhale, straighten. Exhale, bend the front knee. Inhale, straighten. This should be a nice hamstring stretch here. Exhale, bend into the front knee. Straighten the leg as you inhale. And exhale as you bend the knee. Just move through this with your own breath at your own pace. And then on your next exhale, come back to that low lunge. We're going to rise all the way up for high lunge as you inhale. Drop your back heel to your left heel so that it's at that 45 or 90-degree angle. And then line up your right heel with your left arch. So front heel is right in line with the left arch. You should be able to draw a straight line there. Take your whole torso and your whole shoulders to face the left side of the room. Arms come out wide like a T, palms facing down. Straight, strong arms here. Nothing like Egyptian, whatever. You want straight, strong arms. Front knee is right over that right ankle. See if you can wrap the outer right thigh down towards the mat and the inner thigh up towards the ceiling. So you're trying to wrap that right glute underneath your body. Take your shoulders and stack them right over your hips. Shoulders are out of the ears, so nice long space for the neck to be long. Pull your belly in towards your spine. And then turn your gaze forward. So you should feel a nice opening in the inner left groin here, as well as that strengthening in the front quad. So this is all around a nice little stretch here. We're going to start to straighten that front leg and reach forward with the right arm. So like someone's pulling us, but our legs are staying stagnant. And then we're going to tip forward like a clock, right? So that we're coming into 12 and 6. So left arm is at 12, bottom arm is at 6. You can place the right palm on top of your shin. But what I don't want to happen is you crunching over like this so that you don't have a straight spine here. So we don't need to go all the way down to the floor with that right palm. Come up so that you can have a nice long spine. So I don't have any sort of crunching occurring here. I'm maintaining the length and then the integrity of the shape of my spine. A soft bend into that front knee is nice to protect that knee joint. So this pose is coming from the strength of our legs, right? You should feel a nice opening right about here in that outer, it's like the outer hip, like the upper outer hip. I forget what that is called in anatomy. I learned about it, but I forgot. And then you're going to start to bend into that front knee again and then just turn your whole body to face forward. So release the back heel. And you're going to step that left foot to meet the right and fold forward. Take your feet hips width distance apart. Then you're going to take option for those peace fingers again. If you want to take it even further, you can slide your hands underneath your feet so that your soles of the feet are pressing down into the palms of the hands and your toes are right at your wrist creases. See if you can lift up in that sort of pseudo halfway lift. So we're trying to straighten the legs any amount, straighten the spine any amount. And then as you exhale, you can start to bend into those elbows and pull your collarbones down towards the floor. See if you can get your hips over top your heels here. We're breathing deeply in and out the nose. And then very slowly, you're going to start to release that grasp, that grip. And then you're just going to walk your feet back together. Come up onto your tippy toes, and then you're just going to start to crouch down and curl into a little ball. And then take your chin and tuck it into your chest for crouch and curl. Another one that should feel pretty good on the low back. Take a deep inhale breath through the nose. And then as you exhale, start to lift your head up. You're going to lower down the heels and then reach the arms forward. And then you're just going to come to seated on your butt. And then we're going to come all the way down. Knees draw into the chest. And then take your hands together and clasp them behind your head. Draw your elbows in together. And then start to straighten the right leg, but keeping that right leg about 6 inches off the mat. Take your right knee into your left, or right elbow into your left knee. Take an inhale breath, and then you're going to switch. Straighten the left leg, take your left elbow into your right knee, and switch. So we're doing these, what they call the yogi bicycles. So this is slow, controlled movement, and switch. Breathing in, and breathing out as you switch. Make that breath to movement. Breathe in as you switch and exhale as you switch. And we're going to do this for about 30 seconds, so you got this. This is probably the last time you'll have to do abs all today, right? Slow, controlled movements. Really straighten into that front leg. So take the time to make this full shape, right? So this isn't like a quick little bicycle. This is a slow yogi bicycle. Couple more seconds here. Find your breath. Just give me 5 more. 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And then take your knees into your chest, take your arms or your legs straight overhead. Keep your shoulders off of the mat. Then we're just going to do some crunches for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Release the palms down, release your arms down, keep your legs lifted. So palms are down, and we're just going to start to lift our hips. So we're doing these sort of reverse crunches. So start to lift your hips for 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Keep your legs straight. We're very, 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 very slowly going to lower our legs all the way down. Keep going. See if you can press the tailbone into the floor. And then release your heels down. Good job. So we're going to come back up to seated on our butts. Bend your right knee so that you're in this like L-shaped position, right? So we're not going to open up our knee wide, but we're just going to bend into that right knee. Keep the left leg straight out in front of you. Wrap your left arm around that right thigh. Take your right arm up. See if you can spin your shoulders open to face the right side of the room. And then take your right arm behind you at your sacrum. So I want you to press into that right palm to see if you can straighten your back any amount. Straighten your spine. Lift the crown of your head up towards the ceiling. If you can get that left elbow on the outside of the right knee, you can go for that as well for an even deeper variation. And breathe here for a few breaths. And then slowly start to release, straightening towards the front of the room, the upper body. Extend that right leg straight out in front of you. And then bend into that left knee. We're going to wrap our right arm around the knee. Take the left arm overhead. See if you can turn your shoulders to face the left side of the room. And slowly place that left palm at your sacrum. Press into that left palm and use your arm to keep your back as straight as possible, crown of your head reaching up towards the ceiling. And then maybe you gaze over the left shoulder. And as you inhale, see if you can find a little bit more length through the spine, lifting up through the ceiling. And as you exhale, we're finding a little bit of a deeper twist here. One more round of breath. And then as you exhale, you're going to slowly make your way back to center. And then straighten both legs. You may need a blanket to place it underneath your sit bones so that you're not crunched over in this seated staff position. So by sitting on having your tailbone or your sit bones on a blanket, you can actually tilt your pelvis forward so that you're not sort of like crunched over like this. We want to have a nice long straight spine. And you're going to reach your arms up overhead. And then we're going to exhale and start to reach forward for our feet, our ankles, our calves, whatever you can reach. Keep your feet flexed and pull your toes back towards your shins. This should be a nice stretch in the quads when you do that. And see if you can lead with the chest, like somebody has a string attached to your sternum and is tied to your toes. That's sort of how you want to be, the direction that you want to be pulling into. Deep breath in. And a deep breath out. One more breath here. And one more breath out. Very slowly start to walk your hands up your legs and remove that blanket out of the way if you have it there. We're going to come, one of our final poses is pigeon pose. So this is basically what we were building up to earlier in class. You're going to come onto hands and knees. And you're going to take your right knee and drag it up towards your right wrist. Okay? And then start to drag your left knee a little bit back. Take your right, so there's enough space to take your foot in front of your left knee. And then start to walk your left foot towards your left wrist, not all the way up, but enough so that your your right heel is almost at your left hip flexor. So right heel in line with left hip flexor. So what you need to do to make that happen is slide your left knee backwards. Slide your left foot backwards. And then you can drop that left hip so that it's closer to the right heel. So this is like the safest way that I can imagine going into pigeon pose without us like cranking our leg up, right? So when we're here, we want to see if we can squeeze the outer hips together. So come and walk up onto your fingertips. Press into the top of your left foot. Press into the right shin, the right calf. So every connection point that you have on your leg, press into the floor here. To see if you can get so light that you can actually lift your arms up. Squeeze your thighs together, squeeze your glutes together. Energetically draw your hips together or draw your thighs together, right? So you're drawing your front leg backwards and you're drawing your back legs forward. So we're creating this nice little buoyancy by doing that, right? So that is what I want you to be doing throughout the entire pigeon pose. And then you can start to walk forward. Maybe you come onto a block, maybe you come onto your forearms, maybe you come all the way down, maybe you're just up here and this is enough. If this is really tough and you're having trouble with that right hip, place a blanket or a pillow underneath the right hip, the right glute cheek. So come down into this pigeon. And we're just gonna hold here for a little bit. I'm gonna go over on time because I did talk a little bit too long at the beginning of class. So I hope you guys don't have anywhere to be. Not that you would, because we're in quarantine. Oh man, I'm going nuts. Okay. So find your breath here if you haven't found it yet. And then take a look back at your left foot. Is your left heel facing straight up towards the ceiling? And if it's not, fix that foot. Finding your breath here, taking deep breaths in and out the nose. One more breath in here. And then very, very slowly, you're going to come back onto your hands. Walk yourself up, upright. Tuck your left toes underneath you. Lift the left knee up off of the ground. Then, with the strength of your core that we just worked so hard on, you're going to start to lift your shin and your knee off of the ground and lift it right into your chest, like how we were doing mountain climbers earlier. So on your inhale breath, lift that knee up. And then as you exhale, you're going to come into three-legged downward dog. So lift that right leg up straight out into downward facing dog. And then you're just going to bend your knee and then open up your hip to face the right side of the room. And then take your left or your right heel towards your left glute. So this should be a nice counter pose to that pigeon pose. And then see if you can square your shoulders to the mat. And then straighten the front, or straighten that right leg, and then place that right leg down on the mat to meet the left. Downward facing dog. And then just roll over your toes. We're coming back to tabletop pose. Start to slide that left knee towards your left wrist, and then start to slide that right knee backwards to make enough room for you to wiggle that foot up towards your right wrist. So left foot is wiggling up towards your right wrist till you eventually get to the point where your left heel is right underneath your right hip flexor. If you need to, you can start to shift that right knee back even further to get there. And then you let your hips sink. So you let your right hip sink down to that heel. Then you're going to start to squeeze your thighs together, squeeze your glutes together, come back up onto your fingertips, and and squeeze so hard, squeeze your thighs together, or squeeze, that front leg back and that right leg up so much that you can actually lift your fingertips off of the mat and get a little bit of buoyancy there. Keep that left foot flexed here as much as possible. So I want you to keep that movement, keep that energy moving, left glute backwards, right hip forwards, as you walk your hands out into that sleeping pigeon position. Continuing to squeeze those glutes together, squeeze the thighs, energetically move that left thigh back and that right thigh forward. Check down to make sure, or check to make sure that right heel is facing straight up. And let yourself relax here. Make sure that left foot is still flexed. If you need to put a pillow underneath that right glute, if there's a lot of space here and that's pretty uncomfortable for you, I encourage you to do that. Don't be a hero. Save your hips. And we're going to hold here for a few breaths. Just so you know, it is 6 o'clock on the dot right now. We still have about 5 minutes left of class. that I have planned. So if you need to stop here, this is just gently move out of this position. But if you can keep going, we're going to do just 2 more things and then go into Shavasana. Breathe here through the nose. And on your next exhale, you're going to slowly start to press back up onto your hands. Hands are right underneath the shoulders. Tuck your right toes underneath you and lift your right knee up off of the mat. And then again, using the strength of your core, you're going to lift your left knee and pull it into your chest. So take an inhale breath. Exhale out. Inhale, pull that left knee up. And then as you exhale, we're coming back to 3-legged dog. So straighten that left leg, take the left heel up, start to bend that left knee, and then open up your hip to face the left side of the room. Square your shoulders towards the floor, and then see if you can take that left heel towards the right glute. A nice little counter pose for that pigeon pose. And then just straighten that left leg, and then come down back to down facing dog, placing the left foot next to the right. Roll over your toes, come back to tabletop position. Then you're just going to sit back and just swing your legs out in front of you. Grab a pillow. Ideally, it's a firm pillow. I'm going to grab one of my yoga blocks. If you don't have yoga blocks, I highly recommend getting them. They're really great. You can get them on Yoga Outlet or Amazon. YogaOutlet.com, sorry. So we're going to come all the way down to our backs and have that pillow or that block nearby. Scoot your heels closer to your glutes and then see if you can scoot your tailbone so close to your heels that if you reach down with your hands, you can graze your heels with your fingertips. Feet are hip-width distance apart. Start to press into the soles of the feet to lift your hips up. Take that pillow and place it right underneath your sacrum. The sacrum is not the low back, the sacrum is not the tailbone, it's right in between. So you're gonna let that sacrum rest, or that pillow rest right on the sacrum. So we're in supported bridge pose. So this is our final little last nice pose for low back pain relief. This should feel like really, really good after all that we just did. And we're just going to stay here for a little while. And let ourselves relax into this pose. Remembering to breathe deeply. Without a deep breath, these poses do nothing for us. So we always want to have a nice, long, slow breath. Expansive to create space and release excess tension that we have built up. Let's take a few more breaths here. And let's take one last deep breath together. Take a big inhale, your biggest inhale yet through the nose. Draw it out as long as possible. Once you get to the top, just hold for a second. Maybe see if you can suck in a little bit more air. And then we're going to exhale completely and deeply out of the mouth. Press into the feet to lift your hips off of that pillow and remove it from underneath you. Very, 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 very slowly, slowly lower your spine all the way down to the back. And then you're going to want to have 2 pillows nearby. You're going to straighten your legs. We're coming into our final resting pose, but I want you to take 2 pillows or 2 blocks and place them underneath your thighs so that you have this nice release of the low back in this position. So they're underneath my hamstrings right now, the pillows or the blocks. And then press into the back of the head to lift your shoulder blades off of the mat and pull them together underneath you so that you get this nice broad chest, broad collarbone. And then go ahead and close your eyes. Start to relax the jaw, the crease of your brow. Remove your tongue from the roof of the mouth and let it settle on the back of your throat. Relax the shoulders into the mat, let them get heavy. Let your breath go. No breath control here. Just find a nice, easy breath. It's natural breathing. Let your tailbone and your sacrum sink further down into the mat. And feel your thighs resting into that pillow, getting heavier. Feeling the weight of gravity in your arms and your palms, the palms of your hand. And letting the outer edges of the feet drop down further into the mat. And find this full resting Shavasana, corpse pose position. I encourage you to stay here for as long as you need, at the very least 5 minutes or so. And just enjoy this last relaxation pose, preparing the body for sleep, for an evening of winding down and relaxation after, for most of us, was maybe a hectic day. I'm just going to mute the video and turn off the camera, but the video will still go. So just, again, stay here as long as you need. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that your back is feeling great after this.